You're listening to Greener Lawn, Happier You, produced by Weedex Lawn Care. Join us as we explore all things related to your lawn. Whether you're a seasoned professional, like we are, or you're just starting out, this show is for you. So sit back, grab a drink, and let's grow together.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Greener Lawn, Happier You. I am Nick.
I am Brennan.
And we are very quickly approaching our springtime weather, which means grass is starting to break. We're starting to see some green.
We had some cooler temperatures last week, but
we did
kind of slow things down maybe for a few days. But I think now that the future forecast is looking pretty much like spring is here and it's here to stay.
Yep.
I know I scalped my yard. I have a solely Bermuda lawn. I have St. Augustine too, a little bit of St. Augustine, but I want it to die. Like, I wouldn't recommend this to a homeowner.
It'll get a fungus. It will die. Just don't treat it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. But I wouldn't recommend this to a homeowner that wants to keep their St. Augustine, but I scalped it as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's going to kill it. It's just, obviously not good for it.
I'll tell you, that will make for a very ugly yard is when you scalp a St. Augustine yard. Yeah, it looks rough.
I have a tiny bit in my backyard around the back patio and a little bit on the left-hand side of my front yard that nobody sees anyways. And like I said, I want it to die.
Yeah.
So I scalped that sucker as short as I can.
Why do you have St. Augustine there?
I'm assuming it came from the previous owner of the home.
Okay.
Or maybe a neighbor to the right side of my house.
Is it an area that should have St. Augustine instead of Bermuda?
Full sunlight. Okay. So that's why I want it to die. I don't
die.
Yeah. So no, I scalped my yard this weekend, and so obviously I think that's going to be it took me 4 hours to scalp it too.
Golly.
Yeah. Because I have I wouldn't say it's a cheaper mower. It's a Toro, but it's not meant to do that type of work.
Yeah.
It's you're going from a 3-inch thick dormant layer of turf grass down to cutting it about a 1/4-inch thick layer. That's a lot of grass to take, and that mower bogs down. So like you're having to lift your mower up about every 3 feet to let the engine cycle back because it bogs the engine down so much. And all the bags of clippings I was having to dump to get them, luckily I live in an area that I have a green belt right behind my house.
You do. So
I'm able to just, the front yard I bagged and, I'm going to throw away, but the backyard I was able to just throw in the green belt. Perfect. And it's great, it's not, it's composting, it's recycling.
I do not miss having to push mow my yard.
Yeah. Now you have a tractor with a brush hog.
I do. And a small riding mower. For about 10,000 square feet around the house, I mow with like a riding mower, but then everything else is just
You take one of our trucks home to do a pre-emergent, or are you going to eventually?
No.
You should.
I have no irrigation out there. It looks, when I mow it, it looks good. Thick and green. So
weeds are green too.
Yeah.
So again,
And my girls like the little wildflowers that pop up everywhere. So
yeah, you're a naturalist.
Yeah.
So as Nick's saying, spring is here. We can feel it with everything that we're doing, everything that we're seeing. I mean, weeds are just thriving.
Yes.
All types of weeds, mainly right now what we're seeing are the winter, annuals like broadleaf weeds and grassies are really thriving. They love these temperatures.
Wild carrot is loving this year.
It is everywhere.
Yeah.
Rescue grass is really starting to come up with authority.
What's been lighter this year is poana compared to the last few years. So? Poana, I've seen a little bit of it, but it hasn't been near like wild carrot or rescue.
I think that stuff's cyclical too. How weeds, are prevalent one year and then they might not be prevalent for a year or two and then they'll be prevalent for 3 years. I think that's really cyclical how you see those patterns of weed pressure.
Yeah, that's true.
So with the spring approaching and growing season right around the corner, we wanted to discuss a topic that many people might be thinking about right now. Obviously, pre-emergents are top of mind, but people are having issues with their lawns, whether they be, previous damage or just areas that might need to be, cared for because they've just haven't had turf grass there for a while. But resodding or reseeding, and which is the better method, which one we recommend, DIY. It's all going to be DIY, or you're going to hire a landscape company because we don't offer those services. But obviously we have our opinions on it, I would say. So what would you recommend to a homeowner in North Texas with an average size lawn, anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 square feet? What would you recommend them to do?
I think it would really depend on the situation. If it's just a small area that you need a little bit of recovery in, reseeding is a good option.
Also, what you're wanting to do too, you bring up a good point with that. So if it's a small area underneath a large established native tree like a live oak or whatever it might be, reseeding, because the type of grass that you typically want to go down with is not going to be a warm season turf grass like Bermuda.
Nope.
Or St. Augustine, especially St. Augustine or Zoysia, or the more shade tolerant turf grasses. But if you've had struggles with that area growing year over year, you need to be going back with a cool season turf grass like fescue, and that's the only way you can establish it is through seed.
And that's what I was going to say. When you're trying to figure out, do I reseed, do I lay new sod, what's your scenario? Like, why are you in this position to where you have to recover the grass? Is it a shade issue? Then you need to decide, because what we see a lot of is they have a shade issue after a couple years, the grass thins out, it's Bermuda, and then they come in and they reseed or sod with Bermuda.
Yeah.
So figure out why you're losing grass in the first place.
And what's funny with that, Nick, is typically they're hiring an outfit to do that.
Yes.
And so somebody's coming in, year after year, every few years, and they're charging somebody to put down Bermuda again and just basically stealing their money.
Yeah, and that blows my mind.
Yeah.
So figure out the type of grass you need for your property. Some have drainage issues, some have shade issues, some have no irrigation, some have, there's so many factors.
Out if sodding or seeding is the solution for it, because if it's like you said, a drainage issue, let's not keep sodding and just throwing good money away at a problem that's never going to be fixed by doing.
Or if it's a thin Bermuda lawn that you think is dead and it's in full sun, you don't need to seed or sod because it's going to come back.
Yeah, we deal with people like that on, I wouldn't say a regular basis, but from time to time they're like, hey, you don't put down my pre-emergent this year because I'm going to seed. We're like, well, why do you think you need to seed? Well, I have a Bermuda yard that's at full sunlight that's struggling.
I was on one today.
No, you just need to mow more often and you need to water better.
I was on one today, and that's what he wanted. The notes on his account said he wanted advice on how to thicken his yard without mowing more frequently. But I went out there, and it was, severely drought stressed from last year. So I said, man, you don't need to sod or seed or anything, because that was his concern.
Yeah.
I said, you just need to get water on this, and then once it starts growing, get on a weekly.
But I want it thicker without
schedule.
watering more, Nick.
But he was receptive. That's a plus. He was receptive.
Artificial turf.
Yeah.
It doesn't need water nor mowing.
But then I had to talk to him about a different part of his yard that was heavy shade.
Yeah.
That the Bermuda's just never going to do good there. So
I think we've established thus far that we would always recommend seeding for certain scenarios. And typically for us, that's going to be for a shaded area that you've tried a more shade tolerant turf grass like St. Augustine, like Zoysia. Because the problem is with St. Augustine or Zoysia is, yes, they're more shade tolerant, but not to establish. To establish that turf grass, you still need a full photo period, so a full length of daylight.
Yes.
So whether that be 12, 13 hours of like full direct sunlight, you still need that to establish it. Now when it matures, it can take less sunlight and still thrive. So that's the problem with it, is like, how much do you want to thin up and raise the canopy of that tree to make it look unsightly to allow that to happen? As well as like, okay, I've done this 3 to 4 times. I've spent $1,000 each year. I'm $3,000 into this project, and I'm no better off now than I was 3 years ago. Let's try something different. Then you have options. Like I said, do you want to do like if turf grass is like something that you actually want, you don't want a landscape bed, you don't want a hardscape, then cool season turf grass.
Yeah.
Because if it's under a, decently established tree that's providing a lot of shade there, it's going to be, let's just throw a number out there, 15 degrees cooler underneath that tree. Then fescue can survive in that during our Texas summers. Are you going to have to water it a little bit more than you normally would? Yeah, you are. But it will survive. And then maybe every other year, the areas that burn up due to lack of water and heat stress throughout the summer, you're just going to have to fill those areas in.
Right.
Then the other alternative is like Or instead of having to dealing with that headache underneath that shade tree, why don't you just put bed edging around it, around the to the end of the drainage line or the drip line or canopy line, and then do like a mulched bed or a river rock bed with shade tolerant plants in there is what I would do.
Yeah.
As far as reseeding the entire lawn, Nick kind of hit on it earlier. We do get customers or even just people that are wanting our opinions one way or another about like seeding. So Bermuda lawns, typically there are other components or other issues going on that's attributing to that lawn not being thick and healthy than needing to reseed. So even if you reseeded it, you're not going to ultimately fix the true problem if you're not attacking it. So you need to figure out what that is. Is it, a soil issue? Is it a mowing issue? Is it a watering issue? Is it a fertility issue? Like those are things that need to be attacked before seeding it.
Yeah. And a high percentage is going to be the mowing and the watering.
Yeah. I would say
realistically
2/3 or more.
Yeah.
Now, reseeding can work. It will work. You just got to do it right. And that's what we run into a lot, whether you're DIY or you're, many landscape companies just aren't going to seed. They're going to sod.
Yep.
They just, they probably are wanting to put some sort of they're wanting to stand behind their service, their product that they're selling. And seeding just typically is not the route to go. Now, if I had more of a rural area property, I'm living out in the country, then maybe for economically I would seed, but I'm going to prep that seed bed, because that's what I run into a lot is people are just going out there on hard panned clay and they're just putting seed out, and maybe they'll throw a little water on it and they're expecting it to germinate.
Listen,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And the Bible even tells you that this won't happen. The Bible talks about seed that falls on hard ground, right?
Well, I haven't read that verse in the Bible, but I'm listening. I'm all ears.
It does. It just dies out. It can't establish root system. It can't break that surface.
Yeah.
So make sure now
you've got to till that ground.
I was going to ask you, when you're doing seed compared to sod, because I know sod, the proper way to do it is till it up, lay new soil or compost, and then lay your sod on top of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a pretty gross downplay of the process.
I think you can be successful sodding, if you just put it right down on top of
either way. I think you'll have more success
chance
with sod
than
seed.
But you're gonna have a better chance sodding just without doing any preparation and getting it to establish than you let's say with seed you might have a 15% chance of it establishing without doing any preparation. With sod, you're going to probably have a 60%, 70% chance, maybe not 70, but at least 50 to 60% chance of it establishing without doing any preparation.
Okay.
I've done it. You've done it.
Yeah.
You and I've done that because we don't have the tools in our tool bag to go out there and prep that right. Now, have I had to go out and rent a rototiller before because we've had to resod a customer's lawn that chinch bugs ate it up and we didn't diagnose it? So yeah, I wanted to ensure that this customer got, a good established lawn. So I went out and I rented a rototiller, got some good compost, mixed it in, and then I sodded it. That's going to be the right way to do it. If you're a landscape company, yes, you're going to prep the soil. However, whether it's rototillering, if you have a skid steer and you put an attachment on it, you're going to prep the soil.
So even for seeding, you still want to till it up.
Yeah, I would
to do it the right way.
Till it, amend it, and then...
So just throwing, mixing seed in with some compost and spreading that out?
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But, my opinion is on it, yes, you want to prep the soil, and then you want to seed it, and then you want to lay a light layer of topsoil on top of it to hold that seed in place, because you're going to be watering it every day to keep that soil and that seed wet, and you don't want it to be displaced. If you're watering it every day for that seed to move from where it originally landed. So most people, even after they prep it with tilling and amend it with soil in that tilling process, or amend it with compost, then they'll seed it, and then they'll put they'll come in behind it and put a light layer of compost or topsoil on top of it, and then they'll roll it with a sod roller lightly. They probably won't fill that sod roller completely full of water so it's that heavy, but they'll just kind of roll it just to get that seed a little bit drilled down into it, just like if you were drilling wheat, getting it into the actual soil.
Yeah.
So again, if I had a property that was 20, 30, 40,000 square feet, and on an economical standpoint, definitely I would look into seeding. But then at the end of the day, you'd have to sit there and weigh the pros and cons. How expensive is it for me to go out and rent a rototiller?
Yeah.
How much time am I going to have to spend behind that thing?
Yeah.
Breaking a sweat and, all that to ensure that it works. The other thing that you could do that we don't have listed on here is hydro mulching.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are
and that's one thing I don't think of too often.
There are companies out there that offer hydro mulching. Hydro mulching, I mean, I'm familiar with it. I don't know. Don't quote me on anything I'm saying.
I don't know anything about hydro
Basically
mulching.
going to be seed that is embedded in with like fibers, right? And as well fertilizer. So you're spraying it on an area and that fiber is going to whatever it is, however they, embedded in on that. It's basically like a glue that's going to keep it on place, but it's also coated in a fertilizer that's going to help that establish without being displaced through whatever wind, water, birds picking it up or whatever. But hydro mulching, like if I had a 40,000, an acre property, 2 acre property, I would look into hydro mulching. But for our average homeowner in the DFW Metroplex area, they're anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 square feet. In my opinion, sodding is going to be the way to go.
Yeah.
Because sodding, you already come with a pre-established root system. Because when they're cutting that sod, it's coming with a soil that's probably a half inch, 3/4 inch thick layer of soil that root is already established.
Yes.
So we live in a society that wants instantaneous results. And if you want instantaneous results, sodding. You have to sod. But that also puts us in that dilemma of, well, I want the sod, I want the seed, but I also don't want weeds. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Because pre-emergents are root inhibitors, so they're going to kill any establishment of seed or sod.
Yeah. Now, I guess that goes into the question of if you're somebody who, say you just bought a house, or you're just now starting to take your lawn care serious, do you get rid of the weeds first? Do you try to get the grass healthy first? And I think the first question you would have to ask is, am I going to be resodding, or am I just going to let what I have recover and get healthy?
I get what you're saying, yeah.
So if you're just going to let it recover and get healthy, like we were talking about, like a full sun Bermuda yard, chances are you're not going to have to reseed or resod. That Bermuda over time is going to begin to fill in once you start killing off the weeds. So weed control would be, I think, your starting attack on that.
And it's a double-edged sword.
But you're kind of doing it simultaneously. You're taking care of the health of the grass while you're eradicating the weeds, and then that grass starts to thicken up and choke out the remaining weeds. But if you're going to be sodding, then you would really just wait on the weed control until everything was tore out and then laid down, the grass is established. Then you can start the preventative weed control.
Yeah. And it's a double-edged sword, too. Like you're talking about somebody that wants to establish. They already have a base, right? They already have a Bermuda lawn. They have the base that's there. They have a yard that's ridden with annual weeds, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a double-edged sword because, I want to get rid of the weeds because the weeds are out competing the turf grass. I'm also not doing my cultural practices right. I'm not mowing. I'm not watering right. But then I'm going to come in there and I'm going to throw down a pre-emergent on there that's a root inhibitor. It's going to prevent that Bermuda from recovering as quickly. It's just inevitable. It's going to. Now, do you not do the weed control and then do you start doing the or do you start doing the cultural practices right, the mowing and watering? No, I don't believe in doing that. I just think that let's just go and take the hit that you're going to have a little less recovery on that Bermuda grass by putting down pre-emergence and post-emergence to get rid of those weeds. Because I think that on that end, you don't take as big of a hit as you do on the other end of like not doing anything for the weeds and just start mowing and watering better. Because then you're just going to get those weeds where they're even more prevalent on the yard and taking over that grass even more. So I think that you have to establish the pre-emergent base at the same time that you're establishing your cultural practices, correct?
Yeah.
And then the weeds will start to dissipate. And then the Bermuda, is it going to be as fast as it could, recover without a pre-emergent there? No, but I don't know that you're really going to notice it.
No.
To a significant difference.
Nope.
I really don't. But yeah, like you said, if you have a yard that you're just wanting to completely start over, you can do weed control, and you need to do weed control before sodding. Like whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring a landscape company, you need to do a non-selective. You need to do a total kill, like,
Kill it
you know,
all.
middle of March when all the weeds start really coming up, even the perennial grassy weeds like Dallas grass, KR blue stem, things like that. Do a roundup. You probably need to spray it twice, about 2 weeks apart. Kill them all and then till it under.
Yep.
And then when you till it under, then that's when you sod. So that way you're not having a lot of those competing weeds, especially the grassy perennial weeds like Dallas grass and KR blue stem coming up through that new sod.
You will be so frustrated with yourself if you spend thousands of dollars to get
and then
new
you got to
grass,
come back out and
then
kill
you have
it all
to come
after.
back out and kill it again because you have King Ranch or Dallas grass or Johnson grass. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. It's just you got to figure out, like what you said earlier, Nick, like what's the situation that I'm, you know, experiencing, and like how quick or how instantaneous do I want this to happen?
Yeah.
And if you want it to be instantaneous, then you need to resod.
Yeah.
If you live in more of a rural area, then seeding's probably right, or hydro mulching. You just need to look at your, you know, where you stand and how much money you want to spend on it.
Yeah.
So the next,
and whether it's seed or sod, just real quick,
do your research.
Water. It's going to take an abundance of water to establish sod or to get seed to pop.
And we can go into that too with St. Augustine. If you're sodding with St. Augustine, just make sure you got to water. Don't let it dry out. But you also want to try to mitigate the fungus too in it.
Yes.
So don't water it to the point where it's got standing water on there, and don't water at night.
Yeah.
During the spring when you're trying to establish that sod.
And I know
you probably want to put a fungicide on it.
I was going to say, I know it's kind of a controversial about putting any products on new sod, but a fungicide
will tell you no. Yeah.
St. Augustine, I would definitely recommend getting a fungicide on new sod.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, fungicides aren't in any basis aren't going to ever have any detriment to the lawn.
I've never seen it have any
rarity for me, and it's probably more the surfactant that's mixed with it when we're spraying it in hotter temperatures than what the fungicide does to it.
Right.
So moving on, next we're going to talk about understanding different grass types and their needs. We've probably broached this subject a couple times, but I think it's a great thing is, again, we're encroaching the spring, and what are their cultural needs? What are their mowing? What are their watering needs? What are their sun, shade needs? So let's start with Bermuda. What are its needs?
Bermuda, it needs full sun. It is the most hardy grass. I've seen it bounce back from drought stress. I've seen it bounce back from insect damage. I've seen it bounce back from disease damage. It's just a really hardy grass if it's maintained. Mowing on a weekly basis seems to be really good for Bermuda.
Especially if you're mowing at the heights we want to keep our residential lawns.
Yeah, which is 2.5.
Between 2 and 3 inches, you've got to mow every 5 to 7 days.
Yes.
And I think we know it's every weekly, it's every 7 days. If you're mowing every 5 days, you could probably keep it closer to that 2 inch. If you're mowing every 7 days, especially when you get to like the peak of the growing season, or not peak, like June, July, probably more July, you need to mow closer to the 3 inches if you're mowing on a 7-day interval.
Because that's just protecting it from the heat.
Yeah. So Bermuda needs full sunlight.
Yes.
It needs to be mowed on a weekly basis. Never cut more than the top third. And Bermuda can survive. I'm not saying like if there's a tree or two in your front yard. But you've got to keep the canopy raised. You've got to keep it thinned out, and you've got to do it on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes like live oaks that drop a lot of acorns, and they're live oaks because they are just such an invasive tree. That's why they live and thrive for so long, is because they're going to take anything from the surrounding area, and it's theirs. All the nutrients, all the water, all the established resources in that area that live oak's taking. So that's when you drive through our cities in the Metroplex that have live oaks in the center medians. None of them have grass underneath them. Most cities, like you can go to like McKinney or Frisco or whatever, and you'll see that most of them do mulch beds or rock beds or perennial plant beds, because there is not a turf grass that's going to survive under live oaks.
Right.
Like my front yard, Bermuda grass, I have 2 live oaks. They're probably 20, 30 years old. and I have to keep them trimmed every year. It's not like every other year, every 3 years. It's an every year task that I've got to keep the canopies raised pretty high on them and thin out the middle of it if I'm going to expect it to survive.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's even impossible,
Right.
especially as they're dropping tons of acorns. So Bermuda grass, again, sunlight, weekly mowing. What are its watering needs?
This time of year, early spring, we're asking people maybe once a week, about 15 minutes a zone, maybe two times on that one day. Getting into warmer temperatures though, 1.5 inches per week is roughly where you want to be with Bermuda.
And an easy, quick way to calculate that, like if you can get pretty scientific on it, you can go out and do catch can test. We have a YouTube video over catch can test. I don't think it's a great video, Abby. I think we need to reshoot that, obviously. But there's also a lot of Google search and a lot of information out there that you can get on catch can test. That's probably better than our YouTube video. I think we need to redo that. Like maybe you and Abby need to do that. But that's the way you're truly going to know what your PR rate is, your precipitation rate, is by doing a catch can test, running it for 15 minutes, seeing how much water you collect in a measurable basin. Like they sell them on Amazon where it'll catch it and collect it, and it'll tell you how much you're getting in that 15 minutes. So that way you can truly calculate how long you need to run each one of those sections of your irrigation system to get down 1.5 inches of water.
Yeah.
Now, also realize that is you don't want to do all of that watering at once, especially in our soils, because we have clay-based soils that have really tight pores. So after those pores get full with water, they don't take any more water in, and it's just going to be runoff.
Right.
So you have to cycle and soak it. Now, if you have more of a loam or a sandier soil, so a looser soil, you can water for more of you can get more of that precipitation rate down in a longer period, right? You can water for longer periods and not get any waste. But with our clay-based soils here, you have to cycle and soak.
Yeah.
So you have to let that soil get full, and then you have to let it dissipate or let those pores shrink back down, and then you got to water it again.
Especially if you're on a slope.
Yeah, even more so.
Even more so if you're on a slope. You want to cut the times back and run multiple cycles.
And I know that can be difficult to do, especially when we're going through water restrictions and they're only allowing you to water twice a week, but you can still achieve that. You usually can't water between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., but you can water anytime in between then, and you can still run it on multiple start times that day. Most sprinkler controllers will allow you to do anywhere from 4 to 6 run times in a day. You can do multiple programs. You can achieve that.
Yeah.
So you could be watering 3 to 4 times on your watering day.
Yeah.
Just don't water between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., which that's not an efficient time to water. And I think there's a lot of things that go on about, the water will act as a magnifying glass and burn your turf. That's not true. I mean, golf courses water all the time during the heat of the day to keep that,
That's true.
It just dissipates off. What happens is if you water during the day, it's just going to it's going to evaporate quicker. It's going to, that water, you're going to lose that effect of what that water's truly going to do to get into your soil a lot quicker.
Yeah.
The evapotranspiration rate's going to happen a lot quicker.
Yeah.
What else do we want to talk about? Bermuda. I mean, Bermuda's a great grass.
Bermuda is the most low maintenance. It's like I said, it's my favorite grass for that reason. It can withstand a lot. It's low maintenance, and then I think the second one running up to that would be a variety of zoysia.
Zoysia is becoming a lot more popular in North Texas.
It is because it's got more shade tolerance than Bermuda, and it has less issues than St. Augustine. So that's where you have your happy median, I think, with zoysia.
Yeah. It's more expensive. It's a specialty turf grass. If you're getting a new home built, you're going to have to request it and pay for it.
Yep.
Or if you're reestablishing a lawn on a home that the lawn, declined, or you just want a new lawn, again, you just know you're going to pay more for it.
Yep.
I don't know what those costs are. And the only thing that with zoysia is it does not recover as quickly.
It doesn't.
Like Bermuda, if it gets damaged by, XYZ, it's going to recover most generally pretty quickly, sometimes even within that same growing season.
Yeah.
Zoysia is not going to do that. Most likely, if you take extensive damage on zoysia grass, you're going to have to resod those areas.
Yeah.
Like you got to keep that in mind. So
especially drought.
So it's more maintenance required, and not just, I don't know if it's more maintenance required. You've just got to stay on top of the grass a lot more. You need to be, if you're a homeowner and you have zoysia during the summer, you don't need to just be pulling into your garage, going inside your house every day and not looking at your grass.
Right.
You need to be keeping your eye on it every day to every other day.
Because it does not take long for zoysia to get drought stress, and then it really struggles.
Because if you're starting to get decline in that grass, then you need to immediately jump on top of it. Whether that's if you are a green thumb person and tackling it yourself, or if you need to get a company out there to take care of it.
Yep.
But as far as the watering requirements, it's going to be the same. As far as the mowing requirements, pretty much the same. Again, Nick alluded to the fact it is a little more shade tolerant, and that can be variety dependent.
Yep.
And that same thing is with Bermuda. There are certain varieties of Bermuda that are more shade tolerant, like Celebration.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, Celebration Bermuda is more shade tolerant. Even like a common Bermuda or a Tex Turf 10, and now I'm throwing out things that most people might not know, but they're just different cultivars of Bermuda grass, is not going to be as shade tolerant as like a Celebration or a TIF turf.
Right.
Bermuda, a hybrid Bermuda. They're going to be more shade tolerant. So, but it's, again, yes, most varieties of zoysia are more shade tolerant than Bermuda. Their fertility needs are probably going to be a little less than Bermuda grass, but not significantly less, in my opinion. I think you can keep them on the same fertility program. And this is anecdotal information. Obviously, textbooks might tell you something differently, but anecdotally, like, I haven't seen that they require any less fertility.
No, I haven't either.
By the way, I'm trendy now.
Is that a Stanley Cup?
I'm the envy of every house or every stay-at-home mom in the Metroplex now. I'm staying right in line with them. I got this.
At least it's a silver one.
Yeah, I got this for my birthday from one of our coworkers.
Oh, Brendan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah. I just turned 40, so I mean it's a good gift.
When did you turn 40?
February 13th.
Well, happy birthday.
A couple weeks ago. Yeah, I know. I didn't expect you to tell me happy birthday. Moving on. So again, sunlight requirements. We talked about that. Maybe a little, but it still probably requires the same amount of sunlight to establish as Bermuda does. But everything else I think is pretty much the same. The last one that we deal with that we'll talk about today, because these are going to be the three main warm season turf grasses we deal with in DFW, is going to be Bermuda, zoysia, and last but not least, St. Augustine.
Let it die.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people probably have that feeling, good, bad, or indifferent.
I
St.
gotta tell you,
Augustine is here to stay.
St. Augustine is just my least favorite grass.
Because you're dealing with all the customers every day that have issues with it. There are nice St. Augustine lawns out there. It's just, it is a turf grass that is just, it's finicky.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of attention.
People love it.
But people do love it.
People love it.
And I don't know, obviously it's like a tropical region or a transitional grass that does really well in like coastal regions like Houston, Alabama, Florida, things like that. I think it's like a subtropic grass. I don't know, but it'll also do well here in North Texas, dependent on like where you're at and what type of winter weather we get.
Yeah.
So again, as soon as it's established, it's probably more shade tolerant than the other two. Some people will probably argue that with me, but it is. I mean, textbooks and anecdotal information, it's more shade tolerant.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you're trying to establish St. Augustine under a lot of shade, it's not going to establish. There is a limit. But if it is a St. Augustine grass that's mature and then the tree matures with it, if nothing ever happens to that grass, you've got little old grandpa and little old grandma out there like weeding it and cutting it with scissors. That grass will probably never decline.
Yeah.
They're out there just doing everything perfect to it. They're not letting any other mowers on it. That grass is awesome. But it's susceptible to so many diseases and insects. Insects that supposedly everybody says that chinch bugs, the southern chinch bug can affect Bermuda grass, but I've never seen it. I've never seen them on zoysia. In my opinion, the southern chinch bug will only affect St. Augustine grass.
Yeah. It's the only one that I've seen it affect.
Yeah, I've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this a long time. I've never seen them in a different variety of turf grass here in DFW.
Nope.
Chinch bugs are a major factor on St. Augustine grass, and it's one that we're going to try to do, and I think other people in our industry are trying to find the right solution to how to combat it. We know what it is. It's a contact kill insecticide. It's just we've got to have consumers help or customers help. If they see an issue, they got to let us know. Or if you're a DIYer, if you see your lawn starting to struggle during the summer months, you've either got to know how to identify chinch bugs by looking in the thatch layer, looking on the nodes, or the other thing is get a Tupperware or a bowl or something full of soapy water. Don't put it in the area that's dead or dying. Put it right on the outside of it and just pour like a gallon or two of soapy Dawn dishwater, and the chinch bugs will float up to the top. So that, and if you see chinch bugs floating up to the top, then you need to get an insecticide on it.
And it's such a common issue that if you Google chinch bugs in North Texas, you will see videos and pictures, and
we actually have a really good YouTube over chinch bugs.
Perfect. And then, but
Abby will
but you can even see
it,
what the type of damage that it does, so you can start seeing that and recognize that in your yard.
And then the problem is it still deals with the same insects that Bermudans always do. I mean, grubs. But the good thing is grubs, that we've got that nailed down. The industry's got it nailed down. You can properly time an insecticide on there that does have a residual, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to be fine.
Yeah,
we're going to try an insecticide on some test plots or some 10-15 lawns of customers that have had issues in the past this kind of late spring, early summer, and see if we can get some residual with it, and then we might be bringing it to the marketplace for the rest of our customers. We just don't want to make that guarantee right now. All we're doing is a contact kill insecticide. It's a pyrethroid-based insecticide, and that's what most people are using, or a carbonyl, however you say that, based insecticide that you can get from Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's giving you maybe like a week or two residual.
Yeah.
So chinch bugs are a factor that you got to think of with St. Augustine. Again, it can handle more shade when it's established. I mean, it's a beautiful grass when it's healthy. You've got to mow it still weekly. You want to definitely mow it taller than Bermuda grass. You can't mow it short because it is a stoloniferous grass. That means all of its propagation is done above ground and not below ground. It just has a stolon that tap roots into the soil.
Yep.
The one thing about St. Augustine is it does recover fast. Probably out of all the turf grasses, in my opinion, if it's healthy and you can get it healthy, it will recover really quickly, because St. Augustine, if you have a neighbor to the right and a neighbor to the left that have St. Augustine and you have Bermuda, you're going to have St. Augustine because it's going to encroach into your lawn.
Yep.
Watering habits, in my opinion, are about the same as Bermuda. You've just got to be more particular with how you're doing it, maybe more conscious of what you're doing, because you've got to know how to mitigate fungus.
Yep.
That's the one that I know. That's why you hate St. Augustine, is because of the fungus side of it. So talk to that.
Well, I mean, like you said, I think it's just something you have to stay on top of with St. Augustine. You have to understand that from the time it wakes up to the time it goes to sleep, it's in danger of contracting some type of fungus.
Yeah. It's like a white-tailed deer. It's always on the lookout for the predator.
It is. But
that was not a good analogy.
Even Abby was confused.
Well, they're always just sitting there wondering, like, what's
the fungal spores are on the hunt.
What's the next thing that's gonna kill them? The coyote?
It's always gonna be fungus.
Yeah. I don't know. That wasn't a good analogy. I'm sorry. Cut that out.
But it is something that you can stay on top of and mitigate. So when you're choosing a grass for your yard, how much effort do you really want to put into it? That's the big question.
I think that's a great.
That's
a better analogy there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, as far as fungus goes, it can be a pain, but it's workable. It's not. It shouldn't be your.
Yeah.
If you love St. Augustine and you just have to have it, then get it. Just understand that you have to stay on top of the fungus.
And there's several different funguses that attack it. I mean, I think we got a question we're going to deal with.
We do, and I can't wait to hear you answer that one.
I have no idea.
Okay, I didn't know either.
Yeah, but we'll get to that here in a second. So there's our grass types. You can take from that what you want. And again, it's got to be a personal choice. But when you make that personal choice, there's real world factors that are going to come into play of like, is that grass going to establish or not? Is it going to be something like, I think you brought up a great point. Is that something that you're really going to want to put in all that extra work to maintain your lawn?
Yep.
So choosing the right type of grass, we've kind of already given you all the different ins and outs of different grass, and then you've got to understand what type of conditions are on the property of where you're wanting to put this grass, and then go from there.
Yep.
You know, do I have shade? Do I have full sun? Do I have drainage issues? You know, X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can make the right choice. And my opinion is on that, before spending thousands and thousands of dollars by somebody that comes out and tells you you need Bermuda, and you've got, you know, 4 live oaks in your front yard, 6 live oaks in your back, like get a few opinions.
Yeah.
Like, don't just spend $5,000 because the guy gives you a good sales pitch.
Right.
Get a few opinions. And if you have, like, that's one thing that I know probably frustrates you, Nick. It did me when I was in the field. If you have a lawn care company, whoever it is, if you're using them for your weed control, fertilizer, and plant health care needs, before hiring a landscape company to come out and sod your lawn, contact your lawn care company. Be like, hey, can you send a service manager out here so we can have this conversation? Because they don't have anything vested in it. Like, we're not making any money off of that purchase.
Mm-mm.
Like, there's no ROI in it for us.
Yeah.
Like, we're not making any money off that. So we're gonna give you true, honest feedback.
Yep.
Because I know that probably frustrates you. You'll go out to the lawn and you'll see somebody put, you know, a brand new pallet of Bermuda grass underneath a shade tree, and you're like, why didn't you just call me first?
Yeah.
You just spent, you know, who knows amount of money on that, and you should have just called me first, because I would have told you to never do that. 'Cause
It happens every year.
Yeah, now you're gonna have to go out and re-spend all that money again on doing something different. How to establish a new lawn from scratch? I think we already talked about that through the other points, so I don't know that we need to hit on that again. Do you?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay. So I think we'll go into the questions that Abby sent us. We still haven't got any questions from our viewers yet. How many are we up to now, Abby? We're getting there. 1 a week, maybe. That's all it takes. 2 a week, 3 a week.
Okay. This first question, it comes with a picture. It says, what the heck is this, and how do you control it? In Bermuda grass.
Hedge parsley? Parsley?
It's parsley. I was going to say parsley or wild carrot.
It's parsley, I think.
Okay. It's parsley.
Or wild carrot.
Or wild carrot.
One of the two. They both look the same.
Either way, it could be controlled with a pre-emergent. And then over-the-counter herbicides for post-emergent. What do you think for that? I mean, I think any over-the-counter, that's a pretty common weed. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert in active ingredients that are in over-the-counter.
Wild carrot and parsley are
herbicides.
Very common winter weeds in North Texas. So I would, any over-the-counter post-emergent herbicide should take care of those.
Yeah, you should have put down a pre-emergent in the fall to control it.
Yep.
Now it's there, it's established, so you're going to have to eradicate it with a post-emergent,
Mm-hmm.
mow it off, and put down pre-emergents for the spring.
And if you look at the picture, it almost looks like it's been sprayed. I mean, it's kind of wilting a little bit, but yeah, it's pretty, it's very common and it's easy to control, I think.
Yeah. The next question is my grass ready to aerate and sand level? I'm in South Texas. So we're not in South Texas, we're in North Texas, but is your yard ready to aerate? Of course it is. This grass is almost out of dormancy.
I know.
Sand level for our area, I don't recommend that, because I think we're completely clay-based soils here pretty much. I mean, we might have some areas that have a little bit more sand to clay ratio, or a little more loam to clay ratio, but it's mainly just all black bottom. I forget that name. That's like Houston black bottom clay. I don't know what it is exactly. Something like that. Don't quote me on it. But I don't recommend adding a sand amendment to it at all, because I think you can create hot spots in the lawn where there'll be areas of the lawn that filter or infiltrate the water a lot quicker than other areas, and you can create hot spots where the irrigation is not working correctly. So for me, I think we've talked about that in a podcast before. I always recommend to go back with like a compost, something that's not quite as permeable as sand,
Yeah.
but something that's helping loosen up the soil structure a little bit.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, we're aerating right now.
Yeah, this yard is for sure ready.
Yeah. Do you want me to take the next one?
Yeah, dude, because I don't
know
know
what a topper area is.
Nope.
It's not a type of plant. It's how you actually go about sculpting your plant or tree.
Oh.
So like, like an Italian cypress, how you can do that, or certain hedges.
So you can do like a Mickey Mouse head out of it?
It's
Or,
like,
okay.
Yeah, it's just the type of like design you're putting into it. Are they going to come back? So the question is I need some I need some opinions. Does anyone think and I hope I'm saying that right. Again, I might be butchering this. Topperary plants will recover after this winter. I appreciate any help you can provide. I'm ready for the memes too. I don't have any memes. I'm not a meme person. But will they come back? First of all, that bed just looks like it looks like they've been accommodating for the plants looking like that by overwatering.
Yeah.
Because that bed looks like it's way too saturated and you're going to create different problems.
Yeah.
What I would look for is, the leaves are dead. Probably could have happened from frost, freeze, cold days this winter. Those leaves will defoliate and new growth will happen. Should have that already happened? I don't know when this picture was taken. Yeah, with a warmer spring we've had. So what I would do is go to the branches that are coming off of the main trunk of that shrub and see if they have any, when you break them, see if they actually have any green left in them.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, when you break it and get into the actual the structural area underneath the bark, then I would say
I've seen Rafi and Eric take a knife and kind of
cut it back,
back a little bit.
Yeah, so that's what I would do before you discard of them, but I'd also cut back on your watering.
You think it needs a fungicide?
No, just cut back on the watering. And then, like I said, I would cut it with a knife and see if there's any green tissue left in the stem.
Yep.
Or kind of just break one of them and see if there's any green tissue.
Okay. Can we start fertilizing in DFW?
I think you're right on the verge of it. I still think that depending on what type of fertilizers you're using, like if you're using an encapsulated or a slow release fertilizer, you'll get benefit out of it. But if you're using a fertilizer that's not encapsulated or not slow released, then you're probably going to lose most of it.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think the turf grass is really woken up enough to utilize it, and it's going to leach through your soil profile before you're going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Or before the plant's going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
We're not fertilizing yet. But the other thing is that I get frustrated sometimes too, because I get this is how most homeowners think, most just like DIYers think, is like, I've got to immediately fertilize. They don't realize that they have a lot of the essential nutrients that they need for that grass to wake up and start thriving already there.
Yeah.
They're there for that plant to take in and for it to thrive.
Right.
Like, are you going to get a bigger push, maybe a little deeper green up if you throw, nitrogen to it immediately as soon as yeah, maybe, but like, is it going to be so much noticeably different that you can sit there and tell with the naked eye? No.
Right.
Like if you're mowing and watering right, and if you wait to do your fertilizer until the 1st of April, you're probably not going to have it. You're not going to know.
No.
Like you're not going to know, because there's going to be enough minerals there, the essential minerals that grass needs to wake up and start growing. They're there. They're in the soil.
Yeah. You want me to read this
No,
other
I'll
one?
read it to you and then you answer it.
Okay.
If you have the answer. DFW. I was just speaking with my irrigation guy. He casually mentions a fungus that St. Augustine lawns last year, or that in St. Augustine lawns last year due to the weather conditions. I butchered that. Maybe it's just the way this guy. He casually mentions a fungus that hit St. Augustine lawns last year due to weather conditions and really hard freeze we had the previous Christmas. He didn't remember the name. I'm not having any luck with my online research. Can anyone help me out with the name? It's not tar, take all root rot, brown patch, or gray leaf spot. It sounds like a new soil-borne fungus and has to be treated in order for the St. Augustine to survive, and it has a treatment window.
I got nothing for you, buddy.
I mean, there's a disease that we don't deal with anymore called SAD, or St. Augustine. Maybe it is SAD, but it's St. Augustine decline.
Yeah, I've heard of that, but I don't
But
think
we
I've
don't
ever.
deal with it because
Yeah.
they've developed most of the cultivars or strands of St. Augustine that we're dealing with now. It's been bred out of it, like it's resistant to it.
And
I mean, yeah,
but I do know that he says he thinks it's a new soil-borne fungus. Well, that's all of them though.
Yeah,
So
they're all in the soil. Yeah.
yeah, let's just hope for a new fungus to start affecting St. Augustine.
That would
That's
really,
all we
that's
need.
going to change your opinion on St. Augustine.
Yeah.
That might make you start
Let's
liking
add it on.
I mean, I think if anything, Nick, it was, yes, St. Augustine. We probably saw more dieback in St. Augustine grass last year than we've ever seen.
Yep.
And a lot of it was because of the drought
Mhm.
at the end of the year, the previous year, or, the summer going into winter.
Yep.
And we did have that, week and a half or 2 weeks where snow and ice set on the, it was probably more ice than snow, I think.
Yeah.
And it wasn't during Christmas, it was during February.
Right.
Because I specifically remember it was like a week and a half during like the middle part of February that we had ice sitting on lawns for a week and a half.
Yeah.
And that's what did it. And we did it because I think the other factor of that is grass was already starting to come out of dormancy January into January because we were having warm temperatures. So for warm season turf grasses, that's what's detrimental to them is not when they slowly have that transition into freezing temperatures, like, it slowly starts to go down to 30, 29, 26, 25, and it starts to gradually get colder out. It's when it goes from 60 degrees at night, and now the next morning you wake up, it's 9 degrees.
Right.
That's what's detrimental to them, and that's what happened is they were already starting to push out of dormancy and starting to wake up, and then boom, it was, in the negative degrees.
But on top of that, they already had previous disease damage from like the late fall of last
or drought or whatever it was. Yeah.
A lot of yards got hit late in the year with either a late onset of chinch bugs or a late in the year disease, and it gave no time for that grass to recover.
I mean, I was just at, like, I think we talked about it in our last podcast, CEUs, because you're like, why didn't I get to go? Because you're so jelly.
Yeah.
But don't shake your head at me, Bobby. Jealous?
You never heard jelly before?
Like, I'm 40. Those are the terms that 40-year-old people use. I can't help you're in your younger 20s and you have more just like fashionable things to say.
I understood jelly.
Oh, I get it. Yeah,
Beyonce even went off in my head when you said it.
I don't understand that, but
that's where it comes from.
Nonetheless, so what were we talking about?
How crappy St. Augustine is. Yeah.
Again, I don't think. I was in those CU classes.
Yeah.
And we just went over, like, they didn't mention of anything new that was hitting these grasses.
No, I think probably what that guy was telling you was you had a disease.
Yeah.
And then over the winter it got damaged even further because of the previous disease that was in it.
Because that's the deal with it, is I'm not saying that there aren't new pests that attack our lawns, but it's typically pests that are in different regions that make their way to our region. It's not like there's just this new strand of XYZ that nobody's ever heard of that's now starting to, it just doesn't really work.
But if there was going to be a grass that it happened to,
it
would be St. Augustine.
I don't know.
That's all I got today.
That's all I got.
Okay. Well,
if
you guys have any questions, let us know. Just signing off?
Yeah, just signing off.
Signing off. I am Nick.
I'm
Goodbye.
Brennan.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode and that it has provided you with some good tips on how to keep your lawn looking its best. For more, be sure to subscribe to our show and follow us on social media. And remember, a greener lawn leads to a happier you.